Hi everyone, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling. On this episode, I do something I love to do, talk about some 8 tracks from my collection. And this is one I've been wanting to do this episode for a long time, but it took me a while to get what I believe to be all the 8 tracks by this particular band. You may have a clue due to the fact that I never wear a hat, but this is one of the very few caps I've kept over the years. I'm going to be talking about April Wine today. I bought this hat at one of their shows in 1998. One of my favorite Canadian bands, and you'd think where I live in Canada that it would be easy to find April Wine 8 tracks. And aside from a couple, that has not been the case. It's actually taken quite a long time to get this collection up to any sort of completeness. So I thought it was about time I showed you what I had for April Wine 8 tracks. Of course, not all of these albums came out internationally. Not all of them came out in the US, including their very first album from 1971 with this lovely foot cover here, the old Aquarius Records logo. Yeah, this one is not one that you see very often at all. The second album actually came out in the States self-titled with a band cover. Band as in B-A-N-D, just 4 faces, 4 separate pictures. In Canada, we call it On Record. And I love the fact that they have to tell people which side of the 8-track to insert. Were they having a problem with this? They probably were, sadly. Now this one that says 50 cents on it. And this is one of the common April Wine 8 tracks that you'll find around here. When I say around here, I mean in Canada, but it's hard to find one in really good shape. And this is still the one in the best shape of all the ones that I've come across. I've also seen ones that have April Wine On Record written on here. Must be a later issue, but this is my copy here. Third album, I believe also was never released in the States, 1973's Electric Jewels. This one's in remarkably good shape for a rare 8-track and one that's hard to track down, again with the helpful arrows on them. Another Aquarius one. The older style of Aquarius, where I believe they were distributed by London Records, because you can kind of tell by the way that the printing looks. First April Wine live album, simply titled Live. Sometimes it's called Live Play Loud. This is the 8-track version I have. It's a little bit bubbly, but again, very, very hard to find. This is another one that wasn't released in the US. And another one of the most common April Wine 8 tracks you'll see. If anybody's starting a collection in Canada, for any amount of years, you'll probably have duplicates of this one. Stand Back, 1975. And this is the last one to look like this, with this old Aquarius look on it. Now it looks like there's more songs on it. There really isn't. It's just that the songs in this album happen to have really long titles. I've seen other versions of this where the front cover goes here and the song titles are down at the bottom, but this one was a pretty big album for them in Canada, so it's been reissued several times. Next album, 1976, The Whole World's Going Crazy. This is an Aquarius issue, and by now Aquarius has changed their logo to the one they would use through the 70s and I think most of the 80s. Seen a few copies of this, and this isn't the first. The first one I had was like this, but it was really, really in rough shape, so this one replaced that. I believe I gave the old one to Jeff Witcher. Maybe I gave it to Will. Can't remember. I tried to find it at home anyway. Next one, I'd always read it was 1977. All the copies I've seen have a copyright in 1976, so I'm not sure. Anyway, it's Forever for Now, and this is an Aquarius issue. A little bit of wear here, but not bad. Not a lot of bubbling. And also in 1977, and pretty rare cart, you don't see very often, another live album, Live at the El Mocambo. And this Pretty Red cart is actually a US Columbia House cart. You can kind of tell there by the printing, you can really tell here. Even though I don't think it says CRC on it anywhere, this is definitely a Columbia House. So if it was a London release, it would have had a blue cart. It would have looked totally different. So that's my copy of Live at the El Mocambo. Next one I only just found this year. This is First Glance. This is the Canadian version of First Glance on Aquarius Records. A little beat up, but not bad. Of course, fans know that there were two different covers for this. This is the first one, and it only came out in Canada, I think. And then the more common one is this US one, which is their first on Capitol Records. And this is just a pretty standard looking Capitol 8-track. Belonged to someone named Kay Calhoun at one point or another. If you could track the journey these things have made, it would be pretty interesting. I don't know how you could ever do it. We need to get some anthropologists on this, or archaeologists. Next one, I've been always trying to find a replacement, but I can't. So this is my copy of 1979's Greatest Hits. This one has been through the ringer and back. You can actually see right through there. You can actually see through this one. It's really beaten up. It's hard to read. Canadian Aquarius. It only came out in Canada anyway. So I'd like to find a replacement for that, but I kind of like this one for its disheveledness. Next up is one that I actually found in the wild. It's not easy to find 8-tracks in the wild, but I managed to find kind of a beat-up copy of Harder Faster. This is one of their best albums. This is a Canadian copy on Aquarius, you can see there. Although, like all copies of this, and you can't really read it too well in here, it actually says copyright 1979 Capitol Records, which is kind of interesting. And of course, the big April Wine album is this one, The Nature of the Beast. This is a US Capitol one. If you're in the US, this is probably the one you come across most often. And I love telling this story because it is absolutely true. And I've told it before, but when I started adding my collection into Discogs, which is a pretty big undertaking, just for the fun of it, I have the Discogs app on my phone, and you can scan barcodes, and sometimes that'll scan the item right into your collection. Sometimes it scans it and you'll have to pick what version of it you have. I scanned this barcode into my phone, and this is exactly what came up, the US 8-track on Capitol Records for Nature of the Beast. So when they made those barcodes, they were truly ahead of their time. And there is some question. It wouldn't surprise me to find out that 1981's Best of April Wine Rock Ballads, which only came out in Canada on Aquarius Records, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that that exists on 8-track, but as of now, I've never seen any evidence of it. I've never seen any pictures of it. So, moving on. And so far, to my knowledge, the last April Wine 8-track is this, 1982's Power Play album, and once again, we have a US Capitol release, and once again, we have a scannable barcode. Now, of course, they didn't stop making 8-tracks in 1982. That's a well-known fact. Somebody even wrote a book about it. But it never seen any April Wine tracks past Power Play. If anyone out there has proof, I'd love to hear about it. Actually, wouldn't surprise me to find out there are Columbia House issues of 1984's Animal Grace, either a Canadian version or a US. I can't imagine One for the Road or Walking Through Fire, either of those on 8-track, but I have been wrong about that before. One of my favorite Canadian bands, and glad to show off my 8-track collection of April Wine. Thanks for watching this edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions.